conducting our elections as the county commissioners are elected, and there was some ambiguity there. And we'll talk about some of the things that were discussed, and we have a resolution that we're going to propose tonight to get us where we need to be. I think that the qualifying period is 67 days to the 71st day prior to the primary election, which I think is very, very soon. We need to get that done before, so those that are interested in applying to run for office have time to qualify. And finally, we want to talk about some of the specifics that are required by the new legislation. Although I don't think it's necessary tonight to get into all the nitty-gritty details. Those of you that have had an opportunity to read the legislation realize that there is much in terms of policies and procedures that's going to have to be created and adopted by the board. And we're trying to look for a little bit of guidance, I think, tonight on how we want to go about doing that. There are several sources that I've been told that are available, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then finally, the last item on the agenda is just to discuss the lawsuit that has been filed against naming the board as a defendant. So with that, I'd like to open the discussion on the website. And you'll recall that in our last regular meeting, we had, I think it was a regular meeting, we had asked, and Mr. Bone had offered, and we had accepted his offer to try to spearhead this project for us. And I think he has a couple of quotes that he wants to have considered by the board tonight. So, Mr. Bone?
Yes, there's in the packet there in your agenda, there's a couple of quotes that we received once. Right, hear me? Can you hear me out there?
Mike?
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Okay. There's a couple of quotes in the agenda here, one from Excellent Design and one from KMS Inc. To prepare the website. Basically, they were looking at 4 pages of a website with meeting the criteria that we had talked about in the prior meeting. The way they set it up there, the quote from KMS is a little bit less than the first quote there from Excellent Design. Both are proposing to prepare the web page, the website, and the pages to provide the maintenance, so that we would be able to make changes to the site ourselves, or staff would be able to do that, provide some training for doing that, and then also to provide the web hosting as well. So they're the Excellent Design. The total cost there after a discount that they had given was $2,064. They also had a proposal to do a mobile version of the website, if that was of interest to the board, for $500. So I guess that's so you can pull it up on your smartphone if you wanted to, and it would be compatible. And then a newsletter management of $100. And then KMS, their quote was for $1,620. And the way they have that broken down, though, is that they have the website design itself of $500 and the annual hosting of $120, and then they had $50 an hour for development, and they anticipated 20 hours, and said if we didn't use the full 20 hours, they would not bill for the other portion. But I assume if there was more than 20 hours, then they would bill more for that. There's a little bit of a difference in the structure of this.
You both quotes, it mentions maintenance. Does that include, I know that we had talked about the content of the website, so we were going to have copies of the minutes and contracts and audited financial statements, that type of thing. Are they going to be uploading that information, or is that something they're going to be training?
I think to train the staff to do that, to upload that information.
Okay. So any other comments from the board members? Yes, in fact.
Mr. Chairman, in the new legislation, I noticed that it says that we make contracts with Lake County Board of County Commissioners for services performed for the district by personnel employed by the county, and they have a tech department. I'm sure they're very familiar with how to do this. Don't you think we should maybe ask what they would charge us?
That was the very first request I made, and they don't want to be involved, and
Oh, I
and Vance as well talked to them again this week. I talked to them probably back in October, November about it, and so Vance just talked to them, I believe, this week, and confirmed again that they're not interested in participating.
Okay.
I noticed one address that was in our job to the district, the other's not, doesn't make no sense, I think, if it was one out of the other or not.
Well, it actually, I don't believe it would make a difference as far as the board's concerned. That this one from KMS, that was actually through that company, yeah, that company, but
Local company.
which is local, but I guess they may sub out this part of their work, I don't know. But this is the way they tend to quote that.
Does the Excellent Design, I notice they don't have an hourly rate or a composite or additional work. Are they inclusive? Did they indicate to you, or?
Well, again, I met with them and described the site and what we wanted, what we had talked about at the board meeting and what we wanted to have the site do, and they just indicated that this, that they would do the work and this is what it would cost to be able to accomplish all that. So I don't anticipate that there would be any other charges for what they're doing for the management, the pages, the hosting. They have, I think they have 8 hours is what they put in for their training. And then I had also, again, talked to them about having the emails for the board, and that would be included as well, although they don't have it in here, but I mentioned that to them. Right.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, before we decide to start spending money, maybe we should know how much money we've got. I just saw this in my packet. I didn't get it earlier. What does this mean? That do we have money? Yes. So I had asked a couple weeks ago about the money. I hadn't heard anything from anyone. So I was unaware whether we had any money or if we had to wait until December after the taxes started coming in.
No, there's the balance sheet as of April 3rd this year is $2.2 million plus in the account, and we're not legally liable for a specific amount. I think Pat has explained before that it's a fund balance type of a budget. So if we happen to run over in any of our operating expenses, it'll come out of the proceeds that go to the hospital. So there's plenty of money there for that, for this expenditure.
I didn't hear everything you said, Ken. If we run over what?
If we happen to run over on our operating expenses or from our budget, those funds will be taken out of the funds that were designated for the hospitals. I mean, it's a moving budget, so to speak. I mean, it's based upon how much taxes is received and what our expenses are. So there's plenty of money to pay for this.
Can you make that just a little clearer? I meant,
I don't know how to do that.
well, maybe Pat does. When the old district was revealed, and the new district was created, then the money that is there is now the new district. I mean, the new that goes.
Well, it still belongs to the district, but you have a contract to fulfill, and there's a $2.1 million payment due in June, and then the normal operating expenses. So operating expenses, the way this budget, we approve a budget at the fund level. So if you go over any of the line items, it falls out of the indigent care line. So you've got 2.2 something million in the bank right now, and I think today we got a check for $290,000 in because the delinquent and the tax sales start going on. So even after we write the 2.1 million check, you'll have their funds left. Thank you.
So currently we have the money, we've got $400 difference in two quotes. I don't know enough about web design, but $400 isn't a concern as much to me as about the quality. I'm not too good at websites. I don't know who's been in longer, who's done better. I mean, the quality of the issue that I'm concerned about for that little bit of money. So I would refer to whoever thinks which of these guys are best. And
Bob, do you have a recommendation on which one of these we should?
I mean, I just wanted to give one quote because I didn't want to, to be involved in this. I mean, I had obtained one from Excellent Design, and I mean, that's why I think in the first meeting I asked, we haven't meet any requirements for, submitting, asking for bids and so forth. But I think they both would be good companies to handle it. That company is, they're a nationally recognized company, I believe now, or at least throughout the state. Excellent Design is a smaller company, and I know that the owners of that company are going to give hands-on, work on the site. And, I think both of them would do a good job.
I'm of the same opinion, and so I don't think that there's going to be a significant difference in quality from either one. So I would prefer to go with the cheaper of the two. But I would take that in the form of a motion if somebody would like to make that.
sure, I'll make a motion that we award the website design to KMS Inc.
Can we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Coffey. Any further discussion?
The only thing I'd like to add is the two quotes are not similar in the fact that the KMS does not actually indicate it has an email hosting. So if we just verify that in fact that they are exactly the same quote. Bob says they are, but I'd like to understand that in writing if at all possible.
I can utilize my.
Okay, so if I can, we want to amend the motion to accept the KMS Inc. proposal, assuming that the email hosting is also included with the other.
They just weren't as detailed with the information. I'd just like to be sure that it is.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Mr. Grossi, your second?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Let's assume that they know we need to add another $180 or whatever on there for that. I mean, that would still be less than the.
As long as it's less than
Okay.
Excellent Design, we'll go with that one.
Okay.
All right. Do we need a roll call?
No.
No? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Motion passes. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is,
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Will Mr. Bones contact them and work with them going forward?
yes, I'm hopeful that you can do that. And does the board authorize Mr. Bowman to sign any kind of an agreement that they would ask to be signed? And I guess we probably should have added that, but we can do that with a separate motion if you want. I mean, I don't know if they're going to require a signature authorizing the work to be done, but you have to.
That's your question about the signing of the contract or actually being the go-between?
Yeah, both.
Well, it might be something that whoever's going to be handling the site from the staff standpoint would probably be the person that maybe would want to.
We don't know that yet. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to decide between now and September or November. So I don't think that that's going to be known for a while. And the legislation does require us to advertise 2 weeks in advance, I think, of any meeting. And we probably get a pass on this one because we don't have a website, so we didn't really have the ability talked about content in the prior meeting, and that's what you had talked to them about when they put their proposal together. We can ask them to put together what they propose, and maybe get that passed around to all the board members as soon as that's ready, and we can, kind of run comments through Meredith or Pat, and then forward them on to you. If you want, I hate to dump all that on you, but I think we need to, I think time is of the essence to try to get this going. And by the way, I say that because I think that we're going to have more special meetings before our regularly scheduled meetings in September.
I've got a couple of weeks that I might have some time to do it after, but I will tell you that in about 3 weeks, I'm going to be pretty slammed for a little bit here, so if we can, if it's something that can be done.
Well, if they can be told that it's time is of the essence, if they can try to get that done, I perceive being able to get it done in that 2 or 3 week period.
All right, I'll work with them on it.
And
For a period of time, but it might be a point where I say, look, I can't do it, and somebody might have.
well, at that point, you can let Meredith know, and one of us can jump in and finish the deal. Next, yeah.
So if you authorize the sign,
Do we have, is the board okay with Mr. Bowman signing an agreement with Kane, what is it, Kane, right? You have that thing to get the work done?
I assume this will be an annualized renewal, probably.
I would assume so. The annual hosting is $120. The website design was $500. The work development is $1,000. I don't know. It doesn't look like that's going to be an ongoing expense. I think it's going to be very nominal charge going forward. It appears to be.
I think it'd just be the initial contract would just be for this one for a year. Yeah.
And then once we do have somebody on staff that can update, can be trained to update it, I think that it's hours then. Okay. Next item on the agenda is implementation of procedures necessary for compliance with House Bill 1299. And I'd like to ask you to look at the resolution. As I mentioned, let's start with there was a memo that was written to try to identify what changes were going to be required by the new legislation, and also to provide or to indicate which ones needed immediate attention and essentially what needs to be done eventually. But there were a couple of things that needed to be done immediately, and that memo was passed around, was sent to each of the board members, and on page 2, the very first item is board members. And again, summarizing from the new legislation, it says current members finish terms, thereafter terms are 4 years with 2-year maximum. Each board member shall give a $1,000 bond to the county to be paid by district. That's already in place. And then the next item is elections. And elections are to be carried out in the same manner as elections for county commissioners. 3 members of the board must be from the Northeast Territory, and 3 members must be from the Northwest Territory. Immediate action must be taken to instruct the supervisor of elections on the specifics of qualification to ensure that elections are held where terms are ending. The law having just been made law provides little time for this as primary qualification deadlines are looming. And then there's this resolution 2012-01 that was proposed to try to get us to where we need to be. And a little background, and I might ask Ms. Kersey to expound on this if she thinks it's necessary, but there was meetings with Imogen Siegel and County Attorney Sandy Mancock asking for some clarification based on their interpretation of the new law. Again, it's saying that carried out in the same manner as election for county commissioners kind of throws it up in the air. Number one, it didn't specify Lake County, which I think was pretty obvious. It probably needed to be that way. But county commissioners are elected from individual seats. There's 6 districts, and there's lines drawn for each district, and you have to have a candidate or a member from each of those drawn districts. And that's different from what we currently have. We have the Northeast and the Northwest, and technically you have 3 neighbors on the same street that could qualify and run and be elected. So the question was, do we have to draw lines? I mean, that's the way that our county does it. And number 2, from a financial disclosure standpoint, there's 2 different forms that are required that are available. There's a Form 1, which we currently, I think, is that the one that we are currently under? Okay. Very minimal information. And there's a $25 filing fee. The county commissioners are currently required to complete Form 6, which is much, much more detailed as to their sources of income and assets and what have you. And there's a significant filing fee. Since their position is a paid position, I believe the statute or the ordinance requires 6% of their salary to be paid as a filing fee. Or they go out and get petitions. I'm sure many of you have signed petition cards asking that they be put on the ballot in lieu of having to pay that filing fee. So I think, so that meeting was held, and we were told that essentially they don't make that determination. You know, we'll run the election as you tell us to run the election. Essentially, you guys have to tell us what the rules are. So at that point, the Attorney General's office was contacted, and similar questions were asked of them. And while they gave us, you know, some information, they essentially said that they can't technically respond to a question unless it's authorized by the board. And we weren't having our meeting. This was a couple of weeks ago, and we told them that the special meeting was not going to be held until the 16th, and they said that they probably weren't going to be able to get a written response back to us prior to the qualification period expiring for the position. So after that, Senator Metz, or Representative Metz, was contacted, because I think that legislative intent was something else that was discussed when we talked to the Attorney General, and we felt, you know, why not go back to the horse's mouth? I mean, to the gentleman who drafted the legislation, and his intent, and he essentially told us that his intent was that there would be 6 seats, each number 1 through 6. What he didn't want was a general election where the top 3 vote getters receive or get elected, but rather have identified which seat you're running for, and you're going to have an opponent, and they're going to be partisan. There's going to be Republican and Democrat. If there's more than one from each party, there's going to be a primary, you know, to that extent. So this resolution, as it's written, essentially adopts those rules and instructs Ms. Siegel to run the election in that way. And with that, I'll kind of let Meredith add anything that you want to at this point, or open up for discussion from the board members.
I think you've covered it well, Mr. Carpenter. The only thing that I recall that perhaps wasn't mentioned is the candidate must live in the district the date of a certifying election, and that would be 10 days after the election, which I believe for Mrs. Seagal is November 16th. But I think the rest is covered carefully. Thank you.
And I know that board members were provided this resolution in advance as well, and at this point I'd open it up for discussion, comments on those that would like to discuss. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, did I hear you say that you have to declare your party?
I believe that he does want, that the intent was that there would be partisan. Yes.
You did say you would remain.
No Democrat would want to do
Excuse me,
this.
we would remain with the Form 1 we're currently doing now as far as financial disclosure.
That's correct. This is a non-paying job, and it wasn't his intent to try to reinvent the wheel here or create any hardships. He just thought that that was not necessary. So, and in fact, I was told in the meeting this morning that there's a default not regulation, but a statute that says for special districts that the Form 1 is the default form, and the $25 filing fee is the default. So regardless, even if there wasn't, isn't specifically identified in the legislation, that it would default, but this resolution takes care of that. Form 1 and the $25 fine. Any other comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept this resolution to forward on to Ms. Siegel to inform her of our election process.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Byers. We have a second. We have a second by Ms. Boehner. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Motion passes. Thank you. Now, at this point, obviously there's lots to be, the next item in this memo, after the board members notice in meeting, it talks about the website that's required, which meetings are required, an annual meeting, and what to be included in the agenda. And so there's nothing really special there and that I think needs to necessarily be discussed. And item number 3 is assure that tax dollars are properly spent. Eligibility verification criteria and procedures, estimated payment procedures, rules promulgated to require documentation and accounting of estimated funds to providers, ensure compliance. Hospitals must provide audited financial statements. Audit must conduct audit of any provider receiving payments in any one fiscal year in excess of 10% of the district's tax revenue in that year. And at its discretion, may audit any other provider. And then reporting the annual financial statement required at least once each year. Prepare and publish on website and newspaper a complete detailed statement of all monies received and dispersed since the last statement and since creation of the district. As to the first published statement, creation of the district must presumably mean the effective date of the law. We think that. So that's going to be, as of this year, we don't have to go back to day one from when the tax district was created. Must include sources of dollars, balances, and complete statement of financial condition. And then must provide to the Lake County delegation within 120 days after the end of the fiscal year all financial statements and reports of the district, all audit reports of the district and providers which are subject to district audits, an annual report providing a detailed review of performance of the district containing actual data and analyses of patients served, names and types of providers used, ratio of administrative to direct patient expenditures, problems encountered, recommendations of improvement, including proposed legislative changes to the Act. So, as you can see, there's lots of details that are going to be required. And to be quite honest with you, it's not my intent tonight to sit up here and try to debate each single item there. We know that we have to have a residency. There's a residential requirement that the patients have to be residents of the district, and that they have to qualify from an income standpoint. Their income needs to be less than 200% of the federal poverty level. There's references in the legislation to HICRA, the Healthcare Reformation Act, I think. Is that right? Reform Act? What's that?
Healthcare Responsibility.
Responsibility Act, thank you. And there is that is a very detailed process. In just cursory conversations I've had with both hospitals myself, much of that information, if not all of it, is already being collected for indigent patients. But as you can see, there's going to be some required policies and procedures that need to be established. I've been told that there are outside third-party vendors that can be contracted to do this work. I would hope that maybe the hospitals could give us some guidance on some things that, some input from their side, because it's not my intent that we try to recreate the wheel here. I mean, if the necessary data is already being collected, I would just prefer to use that. We can change forms. We have forms that may need to be required. That type of thing needs to be determined. And I've also had conversations with representatives from the county, although I've not had any formal discussion with them. There's nothing in writing, but I think there is some interest there, or there's a possibility that we could be getting some assistance from them. There are folks this fall sitting back back there in the back of the room has some experience with just what we're talking about with regard to the Medicaid reimbursement that the county is responsible for in terms of coming up with qualifications for those reimbursements as well. So I guess my thought was that rather than sit up here for hours and get into the nitty-gritty of this right now, is that maybe designate an individual, similar to the way we did with Mr. Bone, with the website, to go out and contact these different agencies, or the hospitals, the county, and try to come up with a recommendation or some alternatives for us to consider in terms of writing the policies and procedures. And then at that point, we can get into the nitty-gritty and talk about what we think is necessary and what's not necessary. Obviously, my intent for this process is to try to do it as inexpensively as possible, but it's very clear in the legislation of what needs to be done and what needs to be documented. So with that, I'm going to kind of open it up for discussion and see what the other board members' opinions are on this. And if not, if you want to think about what you want to do, I would invite, although I really don't want to open it up for public comment, I would invite a representative from the hospitals if they want to make any comment as to how they think this process needs to go. I've already talked with one of the hospitals, and there is a related entity that's in a similar situation with regards to documentation and audit procedures and all that. So there may be some policies and procedures in place that we can at least start with, and then we could tweak those as we need. Again, I don't necessarily think that we have to sit down and create these things from thin air, but if we have to, we have to. So, any comments?
Mr. Carpenter, I think with your knowledge already in base in place, I think it would only make sense to have you continue in that endeavor, and please assist and direct this board on that you already have, and continue.
I thought that's what we did. See, that's what I get for saying I had an audit background, right? Okay. Well, I was prepared to hear that, to be quite honest with you, and I'm willing to serve in that responsibility in that manner. District Board instructions did.
We need help empower you with help, though. Ken, this is a job here that we're facing foundations organization, trying to know more about placement organization with this new transition here. So I think there's a lot of work, and if we need some help, if we need to authorize you to assistance, I think we need to talk about that.
All right. Can I talk about our conversation this morning with regard to sunshine law? I think we can, right? I was told from a legal standpoint that when the governing board like this appoints a committee for a project and has an individual that's named, say me, to spearhead that, and if they add, okay, I want Ken, I want you to involve Vance Joachim and Kim Madison and Phil Braun in the process, then that creates an issue. That creates a sunshine law violation. If the board names a single individual and gives me the ability or the authority to go and ask people to help me for their opinions, it keeps it out from underneath the sunshine law rules. And I mean, I'm not going to hide anything, but I don't know that we necessarily want to have open public workshops at this point. I'd really rather come in with a recommendation, go and talk to the individuals, go and talk to the county, go and talk to the hospitals, any other sources that I can come up with, and try to come up with a propose another special meeting. This is what I was referring to by the need to have this website up and running. The quicker we get that up, the quicker we can have another special meeting. I really don't want this thing to wait any longer than it has to. I mean, it's not like I'm aching for a project to do, but I really like to get this thing going and have what we need to have in place early rather than trying to do this by the skin of our teeth when we're meeting in September. Yes, Ms. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I've been thinking about this, and it seems to me like we are just going to have to think about hiring an executive director, whatever title you want to give to that person. Maybe not a permanent one now, but just to get all of this going, we need someone to head that up. But as you said, we cannot, we have to do everything in the sunshine, so, but that executive director could get all of these issues together
Right.
for us.
I envision having an employee, hopefully not a full-time employee like you just mentioned. I think that this is hopefully not going to be a full-time position, but again, maybe working out something with the county. And that's, my thought, not necessarily the county's thought. I haven't really talked to anybody there yet, but yes, indeed having an employee, a phone number to call, that type of thing, someone that's going to be going out and doing these audit procedures on a periodic basis. I don't think this is something that's going to have to be done on a weekly basis. It could be done monthly or even quarterly, with reports filed with the board, that type of thing. So that's, in the back of my mind, that's kind of what I'm leaning.
Well, Allison's always sitting out here. She's really been a lot of help to me along this
Right.
line. Maybe she could.
I've had conversations with Allison,
Okay.
and I'm going to have more, I hope, and along with Darren. Great. So, any other comments? No?
Yeah, so if I understood what you said, there are different entities or companies that may be available to help to implement this, that do this kind of work already. Could we just do a request for proposal and say this is what we're looking for, we need someone to implement, this is our legislation that needs to be implemented, needs to be monitored, and we're requesting proposals so that people can come to us and say this is what you need to do, and
That could be the way we end up going. And preparing that request for proposal would be maybe something, if in fact that looks like the way we need to do it. I might bring back a recommendation to send out the request for proposal at the next special meeting. Unless if the majority of the board wants to go that route right now, that's fine. I just don't know what's going to be, what we're going to find out until we actually get into the process. I don't know that there may in fact be policies and procedures in place somewhere else that we can just go in and change names and dates on it, and these are our policies and procedures, and it would be very little cost involved, if any. But there also may be a requirement that we do in fact start from scratch. I know there's, this legislation obviously is unique, so the other rules or policies and procedures from other entities probably wouldn't cover everything that we needed to cover.
well, I guess what I'm looking at are, the ongoing audits that kind of have to be done, and if the same entity or company can provide assistance in implementing this, as well as do the ongoing auditing work that's going to have to be done. I would see that unless we're going to have an in-house person to do all of this, that I see that we're going to need to have a contract with a company to do all of this at some point, and which is going to either end up in a request for proposal, or we're just going to do like we did on the website, just make some phone calls and talk to a couple people. And I don't know if that's what the weight of all of this, if that's the way you would want to go, or if this is really something that rises to the level of saying, we want people to come to us, bring us proposals, tell us what you can do to help us implement this legislation that we have, and to monitor it on an ongoing basis. What's it going to cost us to do that? I appreciate your willingness to go out and to gather that information, but and I may be missing something, but it would seem to me that there are groups that are involved in this kind of work already, that if we put the request for proposals out there and assuming that people want to become involved and have this kind of work, that they would come to us.
Well, I think it's really, we just talked about having multiple bids, for the work for the $2,000 a year website. This is going to be significantly more expensive and more complex, and I think that we would probably need to explore all those possibilities. And one of the things that I'm considering is maybe doing something with the county. Again, I don't foresee this being a full-time position. And if there's a way that we can share an employee with the county in some way, way, shape, or form where they can go out and perform these audits for someone that has some experience in doing or looking at this type of information already, or these requirements, that may be a less expensive way of getting it done. And we could possibly also, and I was looking in the legislation, I seem to recall that there may be something in here requiring us to have, I think we have to have an office and all that. Is that correct?
No,
Can anybody tell me, point to me where that is?
I don't think so.
On line 249.
So, if in fact we're required to have an office, again, it kind of makes you maintain an office in the district's geographical territory, a place that they designate. Again, it's making it look more like we need to have something more local as opposed to hiring an independent auditor or auditing firm or accounting firm from Orlando or whatever to come over and do work for us on a quarterly basis or however often we decide it needs to be done. So again, I'm just trying to cover all the bases, at least this first time around, and then maybe come back with a recommendation that it's going to cost $100,000 to do it this way, it's going to cost $50,000 to do it this way, and maybe that would help make the decision. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman,
Spending.
maybe someone else knows, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, there's only 3 clinics in the area. Florida Hospital, the Baptist Church, and the Catholic Church in Houston. Would there be other eligible clinics? What are we talking about?
That's one of the things we have to decide.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's going to be an application process for those folks to believe that they qualify. The language in here, I think, says licensed hospitals and trying to find out where that is as well. Right. Line 145, 146. Provider means a licensed hospital or primary care clinic physically located in the district. So, I mean, those are the folks that can apply, and then we're essentially going to have, a lot more power than we had before in determining where the money is going to be spent. And we can either accept, all of them, or pick and choose the ones that we think can best most efficiently provide the service and go with that. So there's going to be quite a bit to consider going forward. Yeah.
But the legislation goes on to say that if a patient can find that care at another facility, then we would not be responsible. In other words, if the patient can find that care at the state health department, then we would not be.
I think there's some wording in there about overlap.
Yes.
But I'm not going to get into the legalities of that. Again, that's not something I really wanted to debate tonight. I think that the bottom line is that there's going to be, the tax dollar is going to be open for multiple providers, and we'll have the opportunity to choose which of those providers we're going to fund.
Getting back to the person that's going to do the audit, by description of what I'm seeing, the audits is going to be the main purpose of that individual. Is there anything else that you would?
Probably going to be updating the website. I wouldn't think that would be falling on our responsibility, and I don't think that comes under the contract we have with either our accountant or our attorney. So I would think that they would be doing that. If in fact we have to have a phone, some way to contact an individual, they're going to have to answer the phone. We can have a specific line and a specific number to set up for us, and they would answer North Lake County Hospital District. So I think that there's going to be some additional functionality for that individual. They'll be writing the reports that are going to be presented to the board for approval, and but again, I don't think it's going to be a full-time position. And now if we're going to be contracted to pay a flat dollar amount, or it's going to be billed on an hourly basis, and if so, how much we're going to pay. I mean, all that I think will be fleshed out in future meetings.
Brings up my next question: how many meetings and how often do you anticipate us moving forward?
We could have a special meeting as much as monthly, I would think. get it done. I mean, I'm not, you know, I would hope that we can get it done in a couple. We've got June, July, August prior, and we could usually prior to our September meeting, which is usually in the second or third week of September, I think, sometime after the 15th usually. So there's 4 months, or we can have them more often. I would think that I wouldn't want to just impose on anybody's time more often than at least once a month. And I would suggest that we maybe pencil that in on the calendar, and we'll try our best to schedule the meetings where everybody can attend. But we'll just have to go with what we have for those that can't make it, I would assume. So, again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm running the show here. I mean, that's just what I'm proposing. I mean, I'm just one vote out of 6, so we can do it as often or as you want.
I think my decision is pretty quick whether we need to hire somebody. Do we recognize any savings from outside work that we're doing now by bringing somebody in if we pay them X amount of the savings? We could deter that we're currently doing outside that this person could help us with?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a whole, well, we contract with Ms. Sykes Amos for the accounting work. I don't know that there's anything that person can do there. They obviously can't, unless we hire an attorney, we're not going to be able to do the legal work that Ms. Kirsty does. So I don't know if there's a whole lot more that we can push off on this person. But that all can be explored.
Does the bill indicate when the audits need to begin, or what time frame the first audit would be from?
Well, we're of the opinion that it's going to come with the next tax year. I mean, after the decision is made in September, whether it's up to $1 million, 0, or up to $1 million, when that decision is made and taxes are hard to be collected in the fiscal year 13, I think that's when the audit requirements are going to be necessitated.
Will you accept public input?
I'm sorry?
Will you accept public input? Just a
For
suggestion.
you, yes, sir. Come on, my man. Another auditor.
And no, I'm not bidding on anything. What I would suggest is to move it along is that rather than get bogged down in like an RFP where you actually have a proposal, is that you just now issue a request for qualified persons. I know there's a term for it, the procurement people know, but you basically are talking about you need an administrator, you possibly need at least a temp or contract executive director, you need providers, in other words, solicit names of people interested, clinic owners, and then you're talking about audit. To me, what it was quality assurance. It's really verifying the whole data stream. But anyway, just put together whatever those things are and put an ad out and say, we want to get a list of qualified applicants that are interested in hearing more about this. And that would get your, the names on your list. You'll start getting people in now rather than waiting until maybe you have a meeting and stuff and come up with specific proposals and everything else. And you may find some people in there that really have good qualifications. And of course, clarify that they need to have they should have healthcare experience, especially the executive director and administration people. And of course, you could talk with the county tomorrow and we could, say they're going to do something. But that would be my suggestion, is just post an advertisement, and hopefully the press will write it up too, that if you're looking for people in this area, and just leave it, explain it in 1 or 2 paragraphs that there's a new bill. And if you have a website, you can have those documents on there. Somebody has a Facebook page with your name. It isn't me, Northland County Hospital District, and I don't know who set that up, but whoever's administering it, is there anybody in the audience that has done that? Then you could use that for posting the documents on initially. But that'd be my suggestion, is instead of waiting to get tied down into developing a detailed proposal or anything, is at this point just put out a solicitation for people that are that have qualifications in these areas and that want to be on your email list for notification. And that maybe you can have a, you know, a little meeting with someone like the vendors and hash out, you know, some of those things. I don't know, but it would move it along faster, I think, which is, it seems to be your intention.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should think about office space because it is required in the legislation, even if it's just one room in a strip mall. For this person that we really should hire, someone to get this rolling, to at least set down the briefcase and maybe get a phone, maybe they can use their own phone, their cell phone, but we need to get started and just maybe on just a small office somewhere, and as Van said, I think we need to hire some kind of an administrator to get started with all this.
Well, we really don't have anything for that individual to do at this point in time. We don't have any policies or procedures to follow and, you know, that type of thing to set up. So I'd almost, personally, I would rather wait until the next special meeting, and it would be my intent to do that within the next 30 days. Give me an opportunity to talk with some folks about how we want to proceed with hiring somebody, you know, to help get the ball rolling. If we're going to have an executive director, you know, where we think we can get these services provided, a quality job on writing the policies and procedures, and get it done. You know, trying to figure out how we're going to get to do the work, whether that's going to be a full-time employee or employees, whether, you know, we're the office space, and try to get some ideas. If we go outside the county, the county staff, we would in fact probably have to go find a strip mall office or something like that. But we may be able to do something here within the county administration offices, you know, possibly. Again, I'm just talking off the top of my head now. I don't really know until we delve into it. But I don't know that going out immediately and trying to hire somebody and then kind of having to sit around looking at the four walls and wondering what they're supposed to do. I don't know that I could tell them what they needed to do right now, you know, if they were to come in and start tomorrow, because I think we're kind of all up in the air on that. They could go with me to the meetings I plan on having with the hospitals in the county, but other than that, I don't really know what they would be doing. I don't know that the phone is going to ring off the hook just because we have a phone. Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. It's not up front. I think that's my opinion.
Well, we can't talk to each other.
That's correct.
We can only settle things at our meetings.
Right. I understand.
So in order to get this started, we've got to get someone. There's a lot of things to follow in the legislation that needs to be done. If we would hire someone, they could contact these clinics. If we find a person that's a self-starter, they could write a contract, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we really need. We need someone that would know how to get this started.
And I think that there are entities out there that have that kind of experience, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't know that I would, you know, we're creating something out of thin air. I don't know if there's somebody that's walking around the streets right now that would have that kind of ability to sit down and do that. I agree with you. I think ultimately the policies and procedures will say that there's a form or a packet of information that any provider that wishes to be reimbursed or to obtain reimbursement for indigent care from this tax needs to complete this form, and it's going to be presented to the hospital tax district board, and it's going to be considered and voted on. I mean, all that has to be designated and written down in a policy and procedure manual. So I think that that's really where we need to start, is try to find somebody that can help us get to that point, and then we can go out and hire somebody and say, okay, here's your standards, here's your rules that we need to operate under. Now you go out and try to tell us what we need to do to get this thing going. Maybe come up with some recommendations. But that's, again, I don't know that hiring somebody right now is the way to go. I think we have to put the cart before the horse. Don't put the cart before the horse, and come up with the rules in which that person's going to be working. Yes.
Tully Petrovitz. I'm a physician, and I had served on this board for about 8 years when it first was implemented and back in the 1990s. And the comment that was made about, or the proposal that was made for an RFP seems to me to be a very worthwhile one, looked at from the public standpoint. And the source of really authoritarian views on issues like you're having to deal with probably would best come from the healthcare attorney profession. Those folks are used to dealing with problems like this, and obviously you've got the complex issue here. It's not only the hospitals and the clinics and the physicians that need to be protected in this, but it's the public. And I think that overview can be given by an independent answer to an RFP. So I think that idea was really a good one.
Can I ask you a question? I know that you're involved with WeCare, is that correct?
I had been for many years.
Are there policies and procedures in effect for that organization?
I can't answer for the present time, but we did have, when I was involved as its director, we did have qualifications, and we had a minimum financial statement that had to be provided and residency. But beyond that, I do not know what the latest picture is.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. This is what I was hoping would happen.
Anita Young, and I serve as the treasurer of WeCare currently on the board. And we do have policies and procedures in place. So the individuals do have to qualify, and there are forms that they do have to fill out, and also documentation that they have to provide. So if you would like those policies and procedures, we're happy to share those with you.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Would either of the hospitals care to make a comment on the way they think that we need to proceed? Yeah, come on with here. He wasn't talking about himself.
Frances Crump, Chief Financial Officer for Florida Hospital Waterman. One of the things that we have been doing since this bill was passed has been coordinating with the West Volusia Taxing Authority. Two of our sister institutions, Florida Hospital Fish and Florida Hospital Deland, participate in a arrangement that sounds very similar to what this is developing into, where they bill the taxing authority on an individual basis. And we've obtained some information from them, including the filing requirements, the application that's needed. I'm not exactly sure of what the structure of the taxing authority is or how it is set up, but that might be another resource that could be used to duplicate what has already maybe been established not too far from here as an alternative.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Madison?
At Madison, Florida Hospital Waterman. If it would be helpful, we would be happy to put together in collaboration with the institutions that are currently involved in providing care, and maybe even put together a proposal for your consideration as you move forward, sample policies that could be utilized. We would be happy to do a lot of that legwork if that would be of help to the board, and we can somehow overcome the perception that it would be self-serving by the hospitals.
That would be my concern as well, and I appreciate that offer, and I think that would be something, again, it's something, just another source. I mentioned that I was looking for multiple sources for policies and procedures, and that would just be one that would be under consideration. So I, for one, would welcome that. Again, we're looking at a board full of non-healthcare professionals that are trying to get some information in a very complex world, so I'd be happy to receive that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Diane Hartman, new Chief Financial Officer of Lewisburg Regional.
Hi.
Hi. We do have policies and procedures and documentation that we follow already in an attempt to comply with what you're looking for, so we'd be happy to work with you on anything that you'd like. And
willing to work with Waterman also on getting compliance with this, and believe that we've already got a bunch of this in place.
Okay, thank you. Allison, can you comment anything, make any comment? Do you want to make a comment or at all on what the county may or may not be able to offer, or do you prefer to wait? Or Dottie? No? Yes, no? Huh? Okay. And I don't mean to put them on the spot. I did have a conversation with Allison a couple of days ago, and she made it very clear that she was not talking on behalf of the county, but there's some possibilities there for some assistance. Yes, Dottie.
I'm Dottie Keating, Director of Community Services for Lake County. Allison actually is in my department, and I spoke to the county manager this morning. And we're certainly willing to enter into any kind of discussions with you. I'm not sure exactly from listening to the discussion what it is you're looking for from the county. So I think, we have to be clarified that.
Sure.
I look forward to talking to you, and the county manager does as well.
Okay.
So anything, of course, would be dependent on the board approval.
Sure, I understand that. Thanks.
Do you think space, do you think there's room for an office space somewhere?
Probably somewhere.
I think it's probably would be.
And now my building is crammed in. I don't
We
really.
got a brand new one across the street in my house.
I keep clearing out a
Car-
storage
courtroom.
room, make it into an office.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Evelyn Logus, and I'm a retired medical social worker that worked in Orlando with all the hospitals, with Florida Hospital for 13 years. I'm asking a question now as a taxpayer, and I'm thinking from my experience of walking the walks and the halls and finding out who the indigent was. That's what my job was, to see about their getting assistance. In coordination with the hospitals. Are you putting the horse before the cart, the cart before the horse? You're looking for somebody to do audit. Who are they going to audit? I'm asking because I'm ignorant. I mean, where are you going to get the people? Who are you auditing?
Well, there's going to be, there's currently patients that are being seen by those hospitals, for instance. I mean, I'm assuming that that's not going to change. And they're going to be making requests for similar reimbursement as they're getting now.
And who will decide which patient gets?
That's what we're going to determine with our policies and procedures. The legislation indicates that the indigent has to be a resident of the district and has to have, can't have income that exceeds 200% of the
I understand all that.
So those are going to be a hospital, the provider, not necessarily just the hospital, but any provider that's included in for reimbursement is going to have to document that information and along with the medical necessity. It's also required in the new legislation. So all that information needs to be in place before reimbursement can be made, and that's what our employee or our auditor is going to be going back and doing spot checks to make sure that all that documentation is in fact in place.
In other words, the hospital is going to say, this person needs assistance from this hospital, acting for.
Yes. The approved providers.
Okay. And at that time, does the hospital have to wait until it's all decided on your auditor and all this stuff?
No. I don't believe so. As long as they meet the requirement and they've been approved as a provider by the board, those patients that present, they meet.
So then how will the hospital, who's a nonprofit, and they're supposed to pay indigent, I'm just asking, will they pay for any of these indigents, or will it all be from?
Well, we've gone over that over and over again, and I really don't want to get into the specifics right now. The hospitals would tell you their costs far exceed the reimbursement they get for the taxes. So yeah, they do. They bear a significant portion of the cost. So.
And so will be audited on that also, the hospitals?
They have to provide audited financial statements as part of the new legislation. I mean, they were providing audited financial statements anyway, so that doesn't change. So again, with that, I prefer to not get into all the nitty-gritty any more than we have to, but in some of the few comments that have been made, that there is, a lot of complexity with this, and we have to try to get a handle on this, fairly quickly. So with that, do we have?
Mr. Carpenter, it mentioned too, I know We Care has already come up, but they have an office, they have rooms in that office. You might even talk to them. They've already interviewed the people that need the service. They already have policies, procedures, forms. It may be very well we could contract with them to do all of this. And, I mean, they may need to hire an employee, but it would be, so that's also an area that you could, approach them, because you've already got a place, an address, a phone, federal ID number, payroll, I mean, all the things that somebody else is already doing.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk about those details with Anita.
Again, I wasn't going to bring this up, I was going to wait, but I really don't, I'm embarrassed to say I don't really know the full scope of what We Care is. And sorry, Doctor, I know about it, I kind of had some vague ideas, but since it's been brought up a second time, would it be possible to maybe provide the scope of what We Care is and the...
Well, let's let this lady talk, and I want to close off the public comment, but let her speak, and then if Anita, you want to answer his question, and we'll move on.
I'm Teresa Davis, I'm a citizen of Lake County. I was just wondering, under the Sunshine Law, if members of this board could talk with members of other similar boards. It was brought up that We Care, I think, works with a similar board in another county. Could you all go to them as far as what their policies and procedures are?
Yeah, we just can't do it together. Right. Anita, would you like to address the We Care question?
We Care basically is a not-for-profit organization that was started by a group of physicians. Dr. Petrovich was part of that many years ago. And what the entity basically does is when the indigent patient comes to a primary care clinic or to the hospital for their primary care needs, and then they need specialized care, there are physicians that have volunteered their time that are specialists, and we connect the individual needing the care with the specialist, and then they are seen in the specialist's office for that specialized care. So all We Care is the coordinator of that opportunity to continue the care to a specialized level.
Does that scope go beyond Lake County?
No, it does not for our We Care of Lake County. There are other types of similar services in other counties.
Thank you.
If you want some additional elaboration, I can speak to you after.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion, or?
Well, yeah, I think, go ahead.
Okay. Well, based on your willingness to volunteer and during the discussion, I would make a motion that would allow you to continue discussions with those entities that you feel appropriate to come back and make recommendations as to how we should proceed at another special meeting.
Within, I would think that hopefully within 30 days, and we'll try to coordinate the schedule. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Open it up for discussion.
What's he gonna do? And how can we help him? He's got a lot on his plate. I mean, he's gonna,
Well, yeah, there's gonna be some time. I mean, I don't think you can do anything. Not with me.
He's gonna have to.
Unfortunately, I'm not dismissing your ability.
I would assume we could.
There's a lot. I mean, yeah.
I would assume we could make independent
absolutely
inquiries and ourselves, but we can't do anything where we're really helping.
If we try to do it with one individual, and maybe we can, that individual, me, can maybe come up with a recommendation. These are the good points, we're going this way, and these are the bad points, or kind of give some direction on the way I proceed. And if we did, if each one of us took an entity, one of you took one hospital, and one took another hospital, and one took We Care, and one took other organizations, one talked to the county, and then we wouldn't be able to discuss it and come back and talk about it, you know, until the next special meeting. So if one person does it, at least we'll have, maybe formulate some opinion that can be discussed and maybe bring out the pros and cons for each method. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the cost, whether or not at that point we need to go out with a formal RFP, you know, that type of thing. I would think that would be what I would envision trying to accomplish at the next special meeting.
I think that's my only other recommendation is to do the RFP, to save you some of that work of having to do that, and let other people come and they can do the inquiry and come back with proposals of this is what we can do for you to implement this, and this is what it will cost.
Right. I mean, what may happen is that we go to an entity that takes on the task of actually coming up with the policies and procedures, and then we think it's more appropriate or cost efficient to have someone from the county or someone from We Care or a combination do the actual audit work. The executive director that we're going to have, you know, would maybe be that person if we're going to hire a full-time person. And again, that's going to be, you know, the decision of the full board, not just me. So I would think that hopefully I can come back with some good recommendations.
I'll tell you, one of my concerns from a time standpoint is that, you know, we're looking down the road of having to make a decision on whether to impose a tax and what the millage rate would be. And in doing that, it would seem that we're going to have, you know, if we take a step back, then we're going to have providers come to us and say, this is what we need, this is what we're going to do, and this is how many people we serve, and so forth. And we meet your criteria that you've established, so that means we have to take another step back and say, well, what are our criteria that they're going to have to meet when they come and tell us this is what we need and how much it's going to cost, which means that we have to have that in place. And I just see that you know, unless, yes.
Right. Well, we have a notice requirement, is it 7 days or 15? 7 days, okay. And we can have another special meeting before 30 days, if that's going to be appropriate. I don't know how quickly I can get all this work done. But
I don't think in the next 7 days works, but in our next meeting, if we need to digest the information you provide, maybe have one shortly after that. If we can't, I don't know if you're going to be able to get the information and provide it back to us ahead of time so that we can digest some of it. To try to digest and make a decision, I mean, something as simple as this website, I'm a little uncomfortable with, even though it's pretty straightforward. Because it's first time to see it. This information you're going to be bringing to us is going to be a lot more hopefully detailed. And I don't know if your intention is to have Meredith provide information to us ahead of time.
That would be
if not, I would think we might, after the next meeting, have a meeting. If we can't make decisions, not wait another 30 days.
Right.
I think you're going to learn a lot in the next 20, 30 days. There's institutions down here, the policies, some things they have, and you'll be able to start helping on that. I think I'm not going to help you probably will.
Can I add something else too? Is that let's assume that we're going to head towards a request for proposal. Maybe we won't, but let's assume that's where that we end up in that spot. Is there anybody that we have that is available to and qualified that can prepare a request for proposal that is going to be able to, you know, bring this information in, develop the right wording and everything to do that? Is that something that you know, Meredith, you're attorney for the board, I don't know if that's within your expertise to do that. And the reason I'm asking is if we don't have somebody, I would think that it might be, to speed things along, it might be helpful to inquire about hiring someone that can prepare a request for proposal that will identify the needs that we have, and that we have someone at the next meeting to be available that will say, I can prepare this request for proposal, this is what it's going to cost for us to do that, prepare that request, unless we have the means to do that now.
Well, I think somebody earlier tonight mentioned the county has a procurement department or whatever. I would think that probably can do an RFP in their sleep. and we can use that. I'm actually on the receiving end of a couple RFPs with regard to investments that I can look at. And I don't know if it's just going to be as simple. You know, we can obviously provide a copy of the legislation that they're going to have to write the policies and procedures for, but the RFP is, you know, we need policies and procedures, you know, for this board to operate under going forward, and to make sure that we're in compliance with, you know, this bill, and here's the attached bill, and, you know, tell us how much it's going to cost to have it done, and time is of the essence. We can put a time limit on it. I mean, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I don't think the actual RFP itself is going to be difficult. It's actual, you know, somebody that's actually going to sit down and write the policies and procedures has got a pretty tall task.
Okay. Well, I anticipate that's one of the next questions, not today, but at the next meeting is going to, if we get to that request for proposal, who's going to prepare the request for proposal? And I'm just looking ahead and saying, is there somebody here that's going to be willing to do that if it comes to that point? Or are we going to need to have, hire somebody to do that? And if we are, then should we kind of look ahead and say, why don't we have that person here for the next meeting?
Well, I think that I can draft a request for proposal along with I need assistance from the county, so I do that, but I'm familiar with them, so I'm with Mr. Carpenter. I don't think that's going to be the difficult part, drafting that. I think promulgating the rules and procedures and hiring someone to implement them is going to be the difficult part.
Okay. Is that satisfactory?
That's fine with me. I'm just looking ahead and just anticipate that there's some timeline.
I don't know that it's going to cost us a lot other than the time that Meredith spends on also putting it together. I think that writing the RFP is going to be the easy part. I don't think we get into all the nitty-gritty. I mean, the nitty-gritty here in the bill. All right, any other discussion?
Yes, I wanted to just say I like Mr. Byers' suggestion of, as you accumulate information, if you could have that sent to us, so when we get to the next meeting, we're not just looking at this for the first time, but have a little bit of time to kind of digest, how will this fit in,
Right.
Will this work for us?
I'll try to do that.
And I'm not sure I would want it on a piecemeal basis. I would just as soon receive it a couple of days prior to the meeting.
For all at once?
I think, unless you've got a lot.
Well, it should be. We're going to be providing copies of existing policies and procedures to see if you like that, or do you want to sit down and, I would imagine that nothing that's currently in place is going to satisfy what we need for this bill. We're going to have to tweak that, but it might send something along to you just to give you an idea of what we're looking at and trying to come up with, and then go from there.
Let's leave it to your discretion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, right? I think. Right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. All right, motion passes. The final item on the agenda is response to the new civil complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. There are a couple items that I believe that Ms. Kersey has provided copies of the civil complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief, the actual the suit, copy of the suit, and then information from Stone and Gerken. And this was a response to the appeal, is that correct?
There's two different things.
Yeah, I will let Ms. Kersey describe where we are on this one.
Okay. There is a copy of the civil complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief, which is the new lawsuit that has been filed on behalf of Marilyn Boehner, Jan Boehner. And then there is, the next item I think that's in your package is the defendant's North Lake County Hospital District's motion to stay the action and for more definite statement, which is the response that has been filed to this complaint. The third thing that you will find, I believe, is a status letter from Stone and Gerken as to the first lawsuit with the appellee's motion for partial dismissal.
Okay.
So there are two different lawsuits. One is the complaint and the answer that has been filed. I co-counseled with Stone and Gerken because the board had not approved their representation in the second lawsuit, just for them to represent the board in the first lawsuit and the appellate level. So I believe on the table is whether the board wishes to retain the law firm Stone and Gerken at their current rate to continue representation in the second lawsuit.
Right. And everybody understand that? Yes.
I move the motion to retain them.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown to retain Stone and Gerken to represent us in the second lawsuit, and we have a second by Mr. Bone. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have to abstain from
Right.
the vote because I am a
Right. Thank you, and that please be noted in the minutes that Mrs. Boehner abstained. Secondly, Stone and Gerken was, because of their involvement with the lawsuit, they were retained by Ms. Kirsty to assist with a non-litigation part of this special meeting. They were the ones who put together the analysis that was forwarded to you and also assisted with drafting the resolution. And we would propose that work that would have had to been done by Ms. Kirsty. So I would entertain a motion that we pay Mr. Stone and staff for their work at the rate that Ms. Kirsty is currently paid by the board.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Byers. A second. Second by Mr. Brown. Any further discussion? Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to abstain from the vote since I'm the plaintiff.
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Motion passed. Anything else?
The only other,
to discuss?
thing, Mr. Carpenter, did you want me to contact everyone tomorrow and try and get a date, coordinate a date for the next session meeting within the next 30 days?
And I'd like you to contact me first.
I will do that.
Because I do have a couple of excursions with my family planned in the next 30 or 40 days. I just want to make sure we work around that if we can.
So she'll bring you back the information we need that.
Okay. Dr. Rochelle, excuse me.
Just a brief comment. I'm concerned for the board that there may be a possibility of sunshine violation if you are gathering information as an individual and then distribute it so that it's not available to the public. And I think Ms. Kirsty, probably can give an answer to that, but I've dealt with the sunshine over the years so many times. I'm always very sensitive to that possibility that there may be a violation there.
Thank you.
I'm concerned that if we're distributing it to each of you and something's going to vote on, but I think as a packet we can provide it to you that way.
Yeah. Say that again. How are we doing it differently if we do it as a packet?
Well, let me do some research on the sunshine. On that, I see your concern, Dr. Trois, but I know that you could provide to the board items ahead of time that they're going to consider, but I don't know the difference between if we did it piecemeal and you're going to vote on it, if we're allowed to do that. So let me check on that.
The staff
Well,
is
it's
doing
public
research
information.
and be okay, but I think
Versus
if one of the
Mr.
board members is
Carpenter.
out doing it, then that conceivably could be a problem. I'm not sure.
And maybe, no, let me check on that.
All right. Well, if possibly, I would have to refrain from making the pros and cons or making a recommendation, but just
Provide
later.
information to me and let me simulate it.
I don't know.
I will check on that.
All right.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry.
No, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thanks for shooting us in the foot there. I appreciate that. Any other comment from the board? If not, we stand adjourned at 6:57, this is a record. Thank